Greetings everybody, welcome to G4G on YouTube. I am your host Napalm Dawn, and today we've got a little bit of interesting news. So if you look at things like the Wall Street Journal and Forbes, they will tell you that Activision Blizzard hired Frances Townsend to oversee compliance. So on March 2nd, Frances F. Townsend will serve as the Executive Vice President for Corporate Affairs and has been appointed by the board to serve as a Corporate Secretary and Chief Compliance Officer. She knows Bobby Kotick pretty well, and Bobby Kotick knows her pretty well. They made comments about each other. So one of the things that she is going to be responsible for is compliance in markets around the world. And in regards to loot boxes, which Blizzard has done fairly well with, largely killing them off in Heroes of the Storm, but keeping them in place for Overwatch. And in Overwatch, it's skins and sprays and things like that. So it's purely cosmetic. You're not unlocking a character or boost or a power-up or anything. It is largely cosmetic. However, the pull of certain cosmetics is quite intense because they look so good, where they create a crossover with another Blizzard franchise, like Torbjorn in Overwatch being King Magni in World of Warcraft and everything. So she's saying in regards to loot boxes, oftentimes these laws or regulations are not in harmony. And so the real challenge is making sure that folks who work in each individual area understand their responsibilities and obligations. And she has said that people will often litigate based on things they don't really know everything about. You know, sort of dating back to the slams in the 80s of the PRC, and people saying like Dungeons and Dragons is bad and satanic, and video games cause violence and everything like that. So she certainly does have a point that sometimes these regulators hop on a trend or topic and they don't really understand what it's about. And like, oh, loot box bad gambling, without actually researching it. And she's got a point, but you know, loot box is bad. So she is going to be dealing with how the U.S. will handle relations with China, and dealing with the Commerce Department. Also, China's stake in some other companies throughout the United States. And here's the part where it talks about the loot boxes, and she says oftentimes it's important that we're involved in the conversations, and rightfully a business should represent themselves when these conversations are occurring. But the thing is, corporations and companies often represent pure greed when they're in on these conversations. And anytime you're close to Bobby Kotick, that shit-fuck-faced weasel, then chances are you are probably representing greed. Here's the thing that Forbes and Wall Street Journal begin to gloss over. She used to be an assistant for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism under Bush, and was the Deputy National Secretary Advisor for Combating Terrorism in 2003 and 4. She also served the U.S. Department of Justice during the administrations of George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and George W. Bush. And then more recently, she did some stuff, and she sits on the board of some not-for-profits. She was also born in my home area of Long Island. She was born in Wantagh, which was near where my grandparents were. And Wantagh is home to the regionally famous Jones Beach. And also, during the last presidency, I believe had a large pro-Trump parade. And she's kind of a critic of Trump. The reason why she's a critic of Trump is because it's a rehab of her image. Now, Forbes and Wall Street Journal are not expanding on the fact that when she worked for George W. Bush and was part of the counterterrorism and everything, she was a torture apologist. So there we go, folks. Blizzard has now become the literal H.P. Lovecraft tentacled creature rising out of the dark mist of the ocean. And we have Bobby Kotick, the shit-fuck-faced weasel, who's one of the greediest people that you could possibly imagine. And unlike Nintendo, when Nintendo isn't doing well and the CEO cuts salary down to match everybody else, Bobby Kotick is out being a weasel. So Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick also made $100 million in bonuses over the past 4 years, and he called Townsend a highly regarded public servant. And she called Kotick a transformational leader within the business. Now, this is where Kotaku goes into quite some bigger detail. She used to work as a prosecutor under Rudy Giuliani in the late 1980s before moving to the Justice Department. It is lost in the sauce of today that Rudy Giuliani actually used to be a decent human being and was known for busting quite a lot of crime in New York City. And he, along with a few of the mayors that existed at that time, really kind of began to turn New York and New York City around. However, once she moved on to big government, she was made one of the faces of the Bush administration's war on terror. She's one of the big boosters behind raising the national terror threat level to Blackwatch Plaid. If you know Harvey Birdman, you'll catch the reference. And during Bush's close 2004 re-election campaign, what she did was based on 3-year-old evidence, a decision that then Homeland Security Chief Tom Ridge later said he was politically pressured into doing. She also has dealings with Abu Ghraib, and we've seen the pictures that have come out of that place. The details and the intelligence that was coming out of that prison was created from additional pressure on the people there. She went on to defend the Bush administration's use of torture, including waterboarding, sleep deprivation, and forced nudity. And we've seen the pictures of it. According to her, regardless of what you think on the issue of whether or not waterboarding is torture, there were legal documents created and relied upon by career intelligence officials who then implemented the program, she said during a 2009 interview on CNN after the Obama administration declassified a bunch of Bush-era memos about the legal case for the CIA's use of that torture. There's very strict controls on the program. These people relied on them then and now to release them and to subject these people, these career professionals, to sort of public humiliation. And the potential of congressional investigation will make the intelligence community risk averse. In other words, they are going to avoid doing these things because they might get found out and dragged through the mud. Blizzard itself was recently called on by the AFL-CIO to implement a Rooney Rule that would encourage interviewing diverse candidates for new positions. In a letter to the SEC, Security Exchange Commission obtained by Vice, Activision Blizzard called the modest proposal an unworkable encroachment on a company's ability to run a business and compete for talent in a competitive market. So, God, Blizzard. It is with such a heavy heart that I read stuff like this, because this is a company who has produced products since 2004 that I've played, and played pretty much daily. If it wasn't for WoW, then it was WoW and Heroes of the Storm. Overwatch, whenever I'm feeling into some more aggressive gaming that World of Warcraft or Heroes of the Storm or something else won't cut it, it's over to Overwatch that I go. I mean, sometimes it's Doom. Now lately trying Outriders a little bit. You know, it's been Borderlands, it's been Doom and everything. Borderlands really doesn't satisfy that urge to just plank somebody's head off at 20 yards out that Overwatch does. Doom obviously comes close with the soundtrack and the guns and everything like that. So I am a Blizzard fanboy in the sense that I like their products, but I'm not a Blizzard fanboy in being immune to what this company does. And Activision's infiltration of Blizzard since 2008, when it became Actard, the evil Sith Lord plan is complete, and hiring a torture apologist to be a compliance officer, which really gives you the impression of the beatings will continue until morale improves, is pretty crazy. The depth to which she has defended the torture that goes on and everything. I mean, down here from this interview, she's saying that when it became public what was happening with the torture and the waterboarding and everything like that, oh hey, you really screwed us over. And the interviewer is saying, you know, there were these techniques called walling, which is pushing a person up against the wall. It was intended to shock them more than anything. Facial slaps, insult slaps, stress positions, sleep deprivations, cramped confinement, insects placed in a confinement box, and waterboarding. You said you weren't a part of the policy development, but you were aware of the techniques. Did you maybe cross a legal line? And she's saying, you know, that basically the discussion on it and the fact that it was revealed has now hamstrung their used to do it. That's almost akin to saying, well, now that you brought out the racism, it's not like we could sit there and be racist anymore. You've really hurt us. You've stopped our ability to be racist. It's... I'm watching a company whose products I enjoy so much just decay so badly over the last couple of years, between the 2019 debacle BlizzCon. Well, no, I should say that was 2018. 2019 was good. The 2018 debacle, the Blitzchung incident, Bobby Kotick, the shit-faced fuckweasel, being who he is, and now getting a Bush-era counterterrorism appointee, and for all of the crazy patriotism at the time, now that we're so removed from the 9/11 era over here, so much is coming out about how bad it was, similar to like Reaganomics, and how, you know, how things didn't work there. And you've got a person who is literally knee deep in the slop, and they're now involved in Blizzard. I mean, I don't know what power she'll wield exactly. Hopefully she keeps Blizzard in line with the policies of different countries and respects what's going on with, you know, countries banning loot boxes and calling them gambling and everything like that. But this is, to people who read Wall Street Journal and Forbes and everything, it's going to sound interesting. To people who read this Kotaku article, it is just a huge black mark on them amongst the ones that they have. This just seems like a really dicey PR move on their part. And it remains to be seen exactly what power she'll wield within Blizzard, but their record over the last couple of years with, you know, some of the mass layoffs that they did, including call centers of their support and how their support has just been trashed since then. Battle for Azeroth beta revealed that there were so many issues wrong with that expansion. They just went, oh, well, we don't care. They're doing better in Shadowlands by far. They couldn't do any worse than Biffa, and if they had another product as bad as Biffa or just a tiny bit better, the company would be dead. World of Warcraft would just simply be over at this point. But they're pulling themselves out of the dust a little bit. And we unfortunately have announcements that we're probably not going to see Diablo 4 or Overwatch 2 in 2021. We might see Diablo Immortal based on the technical alpha. The killing of the Hearthstone League really sucked. The fact that they fired community managers and then just a few weeks later put out job opportunities for community managers, and one of them caught them and said, "Are you trying to backfill the job you just fired me from?" And it wasn't that the person was fired, it was a layoff. It was a mass layoff. So essentially what they were doing is resetting salaries. They were getting rid of established higher earners, and they were wiping the board clean so they could get the starry-eyed young intern struggling to make ends meet out in California kind of person was like, oh my god, I'm working for Blizzard. I had the same stars in my eyes and many times when I've been submitted for jobs here locally at Epic. And I don't necessarily know that I would want to have anything to do with Epic lately, but this is perhaps going to be terrible, and it would be nice if we see other sources outside of Kotaku mentioning exactly what this woman has been knee-deep in, because it is quite a black mark over there. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we will be in touch with some more Marvel-related product updates shortly. But this was something definitely worth talking about. Catch you guys later. Have a good one.